Alrighty, so here we are then, we're live. Thank you so much for joining me. Only seems like a couple of days ago since I was here last doing a live broadcast, but those of you who tuned in on Sunday evening when I had our guest, Ian Asprey, the landscape photographer, you might remember at the very end there I alluded to there being something coming out, but obviously I couldn't reveal it until today. So it's like having one of those buying somebody a Christmas present. You're desperate to tell them, but you just can't. But, you know, I don't know if you're somebody who's a Lightroom user, Photoshop user, photographer, whatever. If you've not seen and heard about the updates today, then I don't know where you've been. It's been a lot of talk and a lot of buzz going on because this hasn't just been a dot release. This has been a whole new model release. It's been absolutely fantastic, the amount of stuff that's come in. Exciting times for us photographers. It really, really is. So great to see so many people coming in from all over the place. Got friends from all over the place. Actually, just reckoned Andrew there from over in America. He's now popping in as well, which is great to see. My friend Steve Healy. Loads of people there. So listen, I'm going to go through the updates, which you will have seen today. Try and show you some things from my side of my point of view, show you maybe a couple of little tips, and also go through some best practice, because before these releases were made public today, there were several meetings that we had. We were invited to meetings with Adobe online, going through all the new stuff that was coming, and they were very good enough to give us best practice. So I want to pass some of that on to you as well. But I think those of you who've already installed these updates will kind of be impressed already. I mean, this generative remove, this AI generative remove thing is really, really good. It seems to be working pretty damn good every single time for me anyway. But there's some other things as well I want to let you know about. But before we get into that, as I always do when we do these lives, a little bit of admin first of all. And it's just to say, it's all Lightroom based, let's face it. Just to say that thank you to all of you so far who've been watching the Lightroom Virtual Summit. Obviously today is day 2. I got another class going out in a couple of hours or so. It's called Profiles and Presets, using profiles and presets like a pro. But the feedback so far from classes yesterday across the board has just been fantastic. This is definitely the biggest event that I think, or the biggest and most successful summit that we've had, because Lightroom just seems to be just growing and growing in popularity. So thank you so much for that. You can still get the free passes. I know I've mentioned this in the past. You can still get them while this week is going on with all the classes being released. The only problem is, obviously, when you're using a free pass, it allows you to watch the classes, to watch them from 48 hours from the moment they're released. So if you get your free pass today, you've got roughly 24 hours to watch the classes that were released yesterday. So the sooner you get a free pass, the better. And the link I'll put up at the end is that one just there. So just go to that, sign up, make the most of it. There's plenty of classes coming through for the rest of the week that you can get hold of. And there'll be some other things as well that you'll be able to take a look at regarding these updates. But let's get into these updates, shall we? So obviously today, 21st of May 2024, big updates coming into Lightroom, Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Web, Mobile, Lightroom Classic, and obviously also Camera Raw is taking benefit from some of these things as well. So I'm going to go, I've got my little crib sheet we're going to go through. Some of the updates I'm just going to skip over because we all want to get to the meaty stuff, don't we? The generative AI remove stuff. I want to show you some stuff on that. But let's have a quick dive through, see what we've got first of all, and I'll kind of talk over the top of these slides that I've put together. The first one is, as in every kind of update, whether it's a dot release or a new release, there's always performance updates. And there are definitely some performance updates across the board in all of the platforms of Lightroom this time round. One of the things you will notice, those of you who use denoise, the amazing sort of technology that we've got there for helping to remove noise within our images has been updated, and you'll notice now that it's quicker. It's definitely an improvement in the speed that's coming through. So that's one of the things you'll notice as well. And the other thing to mention is those of you who are Lightroom Classic users, you'll know that, or you'll have noticed that when you have the updates installed, when you then open Lightroom, it's asking you then to upgrade your catalog, and that's because I was listening to Julianne Cost earlier on, and she was saying that's because they've now updated the sync engine. So it's not like a normal dot release where you just have it gets updated. Because it's such a big update, it requires that you upgrade your catalog. So it's no major grief. Everything gets copied over, so no issues there. So that's the first thing to mention about the performance updates. There are, of course, other things under the hood which we'll all get to find out as time goes on. Adobe do like to throw in these little Easter eggs and things that just suddenly appear that we kind of think, oh, I didn't know that was there. There'll be plenty of that, I'm sure. So that's performance improvements. There's also slideshow in desktop. So what I'll do is I'm just going to jump over to let me jump over to my desktop just to kind of show this really. I'll bring up, let's just bring up Lightroom desktop. I've got a simple album here on the left-hand side. And if we just go to the view menu now, we have this start slideshow. Now, don't get me wrong, this is nothing like the slideshow that we have in Lightroom Classic that's always been there, where there's loads of different functionality that you've got for the appearance of it, borders and all that kind of stuff. This is quite a simple one, but let's face it, it's better than what we had before, which was not having it in Lightroom Desktop. So now we have got it. But let's have a quick look at it, what you can do. I've got just 4 images in this album here just to sort of show you it. But if you just click on Start Slideshow, the controls you have are very limited. You're going to get a full screen view of your images, and they're going to start to scroll through at a default speed. But if you put your cursor over the images, you get this tiny little menu bar that comes up at the bottom. Click on this little right-hand side icon here, and you can choose whether to have the images continue going through a loop, and you can also change the speed of the slideshow as well. So just a couple of little things in there that you can do. Like I say, nothing major, but it's better than not having it. And I'm sure over time, now that Adobe have introduced a slideshow into Lightroom Desktop, it's going to be improved over time. So that's the next thing there. Like I said, I'm going to skip over quite a few of these little things here. The next one, this is a biggie. I think this is a really, really good addition. Cloud to local storage. So what do I mean by that? Basically, what this means is that ordinarily in Lightroom Desktop now, if we create an album, that album is automatically synced up to the cloud, and it's going to take up some of your storage space. And people obviously, for obvious reasons and concerns, don't want to spend too much when it comes to storage. So the more albums you have, the more storage you're using, the more potentially it's going to cost you. However, this update now allows us to do this. So here, you can see I'm in Lightroom Desktop. Here's just a few of my little albums here. And what I can actually do now is, rather than having this album here to automatically sync up to the cloud, if I right click on the actual album, I can make album available offline. And when I do that, it then tells me that if those images are not on the hard drive anyway, it's going to download them. It's going to make them available. You'll click on download, and then what you'll have is just a little downward green icon will be visible just to the right-hand side of the album name. And that little icon there is just kind of like an indicator to you to say that that album is now offline and it's not taking up any of your storage space. So anybody who's like a Lightroom Classic user, that'll be quite a familiar thing to you, when you know that you can create collections and you can choose whether or not to sync them. And you have a little icon there on the left-hand side which tells you that it's been synced. So that's that little thing there. As I'm going through this, by the way, I can see the chat's going. I'm doing my very best here to multitask. Drop your questions in. Once I've gone through the main stuff, when we get towards the end of that, I'll then start looking through some of the questions and hopefully be able to answer those for you. But the next one to mention is a biggie. This is a biggie. This really is. And I know already before this was announced and before I actually went live with this, there was somebody posted a comment straight up there saying, thank God Sony can now tether. And this is something that, I'm a Sony shooter. I've got my Sony A7R4 here. I haven't upgraded it yet. I don't know if I will. It might even be changing. Who knows? It's something that we've wanted for a long time. Since Lightroom first came out, since tethering was available, we've not had it. But now to have it, and it works really seamlessly. I just saw somebody posting earlier on saying that they'd tried it, and yes, it works. But also with tethering, you'll notice that it's a little bit slicker. The interfaces had just a few kind of bit of a facelift there, and it just works really, really well. And also the tethering with Sony, the live view, it works really, really well. Very, very happy with it. Because ordinarily we'd have to get like a third-party app, which then, Tether Tools make one, where you can then go through that app. That then gets connected through a plugin into Lightroom and blah, 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 blah. It works really well, don't get me wrong. But let's face it, we want things to be as simple and as seamless as possible. Now, thankfully, the relationship that Adobe have generated now with Sony, it's all good. They've managed to work with them, and now they're about to bring this to us as well, which is fantastic. So very, very happy about that. The next one, just these are like the main ones that are being listed up here. is to say that the tone curve in video, those of you who, I certainly don't do any video in Lightroom, but I know plenty of people that do. So now there is the ability to apply a tone curve in desktop version of Lightroom. So now you can do that as well. So you can edit your videos that particular way. That's that one. Again, I'm just brushing over some of these things here. And then we have, Generative AI Remove. So this is the one that I want to spend, obviously, a little bit of time on now to go through. I've got a few examples of stuff to take you through, and I want to give you some best practice that Adobe passed on to us as well once I've gone through this. So let me just dive over to my my desktop. And the first one, this is one I kind of showed earlier on a little reel that I put together on Instagram. Let's just get this image up here. So this image here, this is from our 25th wedding anniversary last week. Can't believe it. Went down to Amberley Castle. Well, let's just say that I wanted to have a picture of just the castle and not have myself and my wife in it. I'm using Lightroom desktop, but the actual area where you're going to find this kind of stuff is all called the same now. It's all held under the the remove section. And here we have the normal tools that you'd have seen. You know, I've got the heal, you've got the clone, and we've got the remove. But now we've got this option underneath here for generative AI. And when you first put a tick in that, you'll get a little dialog box pop up to kind of give you the warnings about, not warnings, but kind of details about using AI, the legalities of it, and you can click through to a document on the Adobe website. But let's just say now that I'm going to use this. There's other little things in here we'll talk about in a moment. But generative AI, what I'll do now is I'll then bring my cursor over onto the picture, and I can use the right and left square bracket keys to make it bigger or smaller. And I'm just going to very loosely now brush over me. And this is the key word that Adobe told us when they were showing all this initially a short while back, to say don't try to be too accurate. Be quite loose with it. Okay, be generous when you're actually painting around the area that you want to remove. So let me just cover this all in here. Brush it in up to here, like so. So that's what I want to remove just there. You'll notice I've actually removed as well, covered over the shadow that's been cast on there. So I'll let that go. It'll then say, right, now it's got the red overlay. Now you might see, I don't know how it's streaming for you, but you might see there's a tiny little bit of areas that are missed. So once we've actually, first of all, made our selection, we then jump into the refinement area where we can add to what we've painted over, or we can subtract from it. I need to add on it just these two areas here. So I'll brush on that a little bit, and I'll brush on that a little bit. You can also click here to change the color of the overlay. If the image that you're working on, let's say, there's very bright saturated reds in it, and you don't really notice this overlay here, you can change it to a color that will be noticeable. But then what we'll do is we'll just click on apply. You'll notice the difference here between using the AI from Lightroom compared to Photoshop is that we're not having to get any contextual text box there to put any typing in whatsoever. We just literally click apply and we're job done. So there you can see it's done a really good job. The resolution, this is something that people are asking about, is the resolution here I'm told is 2K. And bearing in mind that we're doing this to remove items as opposed to add items, like, you know, extending backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. Removing items, the resolution isn't necessarily having to be quite so able to cover a large area, because really this generative AI remove is there for removing objects and distractions. So 2K seems pretty good. But once you've got your removal done there, you can see, I mean, straight away, I mean, that's really impressive. But then you've got the variations where you can then click through. You get 3 variations. You can just very quickly click through to see which one it is that you prefer. So yeah, quite happy with that, liking that one. So that's that bit there. Let's just drive over to another example, but this time I'll jump over into Lightroom Classic, because it just does look slightly different in Lightroom Classic. So what I'll do with this one here again is just come over to the right-hand side. I'm in the Develop module. We'll get the Remove section here. Here we've got the Remove tool. I've got the Generative AI ticked. Actually, one little thing to note as well is you'll see here it says Early Access. This is something to note, because what this basically means is it's kind of like saying it's in beta, but it's been given to everybody without having to download the beta version, if that makes sense. So early access means this stuff has been released to us publicly to get on and enjoy using. However, it's not the finished product. So with early access, underneath it, in fact, you'll see it just here if I go back to my screen, just underneath here, it says provide feedback on generative remove. So when you use it, let Adobe know. We want these things to be improved more and more and more. And Adobe definitely do listen. The fact that we've got Sony Tethering tells you so. So, if you're not getting the results you want or you're getting good results, click on here to say provide feedback on generative remove, and then kind of, give them some feedback. That really, really does help. The more feedback they get, whether it be positive or negative, it helps us all to get a better product at the end of the day. But generative remove, let's just say I'm going to come over to this picture here. Let's just say my friend Paddy here, he's going to change the name of his van, but he can't afford to do it, so he's just going to do it for his advertising on the graphics. So what we'll do is we'll remove this for him. And you'll notice as I'm brushing over now using Lightroom Classic version, that we don't get that white kind of overlay. We just get this kind of molded kind of outline, really, I guess, that we can push and pull to kind of get to it to cover. So there you go, covers over it there. We can see now we get the red mask to say, look, that's what you've got. Do you want to refine it, yes or no? I'm fine with that, it is. I'll just click on apply. And it then goes up to the cloud. It'll start to then look at seeing what it needs to do, and it'll throw back those 3 generations. And you should really see there that that's not bad speed. I mean, look at that straight away. They look. Again, no contextual taskbar there or text bar there for me to tell you what to do. And these are the 3 variations. Absolutely brilliant. Let's just try it a little bit more on this image just here again. I'll get rid of, let's get rid of this one down here, like so. And I'm also going to see, let's just see if we can clear this thing in the window. Can you see that where we've got the little foliage on the other side there? So I'm going to brush over. And you'll notice here, look, in Lightroom Classic, this is important to note. In Lightroom Classic, I'm making 2 separate selections so far. In fact, I'm going to push it a bit further. Let's go for 3. Now, these here, these selections that I'm making are not what we would call contiguous. There's no connection between them. These are discontiguous, all right? And I'll explain why I mentioned that in a short while, but just remember what I say there, contiguous and discontiguous. So, all right, now that we've got that, quite happy with it, and we'll just click apply. I've not done this before. Let's just give it a go. Let's fly by the seat of our pants and see if this works. Let's click on apply. Now, what it's doing is each of these 3 separate areas is being treated as an individual area. So it's not looking at all of them, and it's not going to kind of generate a fix for all of them, which includes 2K resolution spread across these 3 areas. It's going to do that one in 2K, that one in 2K, and that one in 2K, which is why you'll notice that the generation there, although it wasn't bad, something weird going on, it wasn't bad, it did take a little bit longer. Now look, here's the thing. We can see now we've got these 3 pins. There's one, there's the second one, and there's the third one. Now, I like this one. This one at the bottom here has definitely been good, but I can come over if I want to and change the variations. And those variations there are just for this particular pin. Let's go to this one up here. That looks good. But I can, again, got the variations if I want to change it. But I think the first one looked good. But this one, obviously something strange has kind of gone in it. But let's have a look at the variations just for that one. So we'll go there. No, somebody, some person, and that's kind of weird. So I can refresh it. Let's just try clicking on refresh. This is like that, regenerating it is like we have when we're in Photoshop. So I'll click on refresh, and it's only going to be refreshing that particular one. Let's have a look now, see what this does for us. Again, I've not tried this. Oh, there you go. Not bad at all, that. Quite happy with that. There you go. See, again, the more I'm doing it, the better it's getting. So I'm really, that's pretty cool. That worked really, really well there. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference here with the way that the Lightroom Classic version of Generative AI Remove works and the Lightroom desktop version. And I will come to that in just a minute. But it's important that you notice there that I did 3 separate, and I could have done more, but obviously it will take longer for it to generate because it treats each of them as individual generations. All right, so the next thing I want to show you then, let's go back over to the Lightroom desktop version. Let's just bring up that over there. There we go. And press G to go to my grid, and we'll try something on this particular image here. Now, if I dive into the remove section, obviously we've already looked now at the generative AI. I've done a few examples of it. But there is an option underneath where you can see it says object aware. Now, what is that? Now, that basically, the sort of terminology that Adobe uses says that it preserves the background. It preserves details of the background. But the easiest way of looking at it is this. Let's just say that I want to remove this particular item here. I'm going to tick on object aware. This is a little cardboard box, a little bit of string. So what I'll do is I'll just make a draw down to include that string, and I'm just going to outline this particular box like this. That's all I'm going to do. So then what the AI will look at is go, right, what's within this area that Glyn's kind of outlined? I reckon this is the object that he's looking to remove. So there you can see it highlights it there. It's missed a little bit of the string. So because I'm in the refinement area, I can then just say, no, you've missed that bit, include that for me as well. And then we'll click on apply and just see what it does. Doesn't take too long. This is one thing that you will notice, the speed. Well, I've certainly noticed it, the generation. I mean, look at that. How cool is that? These 3 generations here. Look how it's making this background here. This is what I love about this latest model of all this AI stuff, is the fact that it doesn't just remove it and, fix it like that. It also now is able to look at the lighting within the image itself, and it matches what it creates with the lighting for that particular part of the image. So it's just seamless, really, really seamless, and very, very clever stuff. So that's that one there. So now let me kind of explain what I mean then about this contiguous thing. Let's just go back to another image, and I'll literally just jump onto this one here. Again, I know I've used this one already, but this gives you an example of this. Let's go back into the remove. We don't need to use object aware. Incidentally, when we are using this, although it could be tempted to use the latest and greatest technology, you want to use this for items that are just a little bit bigger than what the regular remove tool could work on. Little things like blemishes and little bits of, just small items that are very quick and simple to do. Don't jump into the generative AI. Why wait for it to generate something for it? The remove tool is perfectly good for it. It's in fact, it's really, really good for it. Use this for things that are, take a little bit more work. Right. So one thing I'll quickly show you is, remember I did those 3 selections and those 3 removals in that picture of my friend Paddy. Now, there's nothing in here that I'll remove 3 times, but I'm going to try to lay down more than one selection. So let's just say there's a little bit of oil here, and I'm going to brush over that, say I want to remove that. And let's just say now that I want to remove this tree over here. Look what happens. This is Lightroom desktop. I'll brush over it. Bump. Nothing happens. Little warning that comes up at the bottom. Let's try it again. Little warning comes up again. Now that warning there, it appears and disappears very, very quickly. And it says the spots that you create must be contiguous, which basically means they must join. So let's just say I've removed this little bit here. If I wanted to remove this tree up here, basically what it's saying is I would have to do this. See, it's contiguous, but I don't want to include all this. So this is the one thing I've noticed by playing with this at the moment, is that this is the difference I'm noticing between the Lightroom desktop version and the Lightroom Classic version. So let me show you now how this works within Lightroom Classic. So I'll just dive over. We'll get a different image. I'm going to get this one here, picture that I took with my drone. And this is the kind of feedback that Adobe need. You can't see me. You can see me, can't you? Here we go. There we go. Something had to go wrong at some point. But look, here's what I've done. Let me just backtrack. Here we go. Thanks to my mate Stuart there for letting me know. Right, so this picture here, we're going to remove these seabirds. I'll get to the remove tool. And again, you'll hear me say it again. I'm brushing over now each of these seabirds. And you can see, look, I'm not getting that little warning coming up saying that the spots must be contiguous. These are all discontiguous. They're not connected, but it's allowing me to create them all. Tiffany, what does Tiffany say just there? As much I get it, Tiffany. Don't worry. I get it. Do you know, something was bound to happen? But hey, there you go. Right, so now look, all of these are selected pretty much. Looks good to me. There's one just at the back there. Let's just see what this does. This is a really intricate structure here. Don't need to do anything in the refinement. We'll click on apply. Now, bear in mind, I said that each of these now are being treated individually. These are individual kind of generative AI removes that they're going to do. And look at this, look at the bar coming across. So I don't know how long this will take. It shouldn't take too long, but we're going to just let it run in real time because we've got to. And let's just see what happens. But this just goes to show in fact, I will come back now, Tiffany. I'm going to come back on screen now. This just goes to show that there is a difference. Though I thought there was another difference that I discovered between the two, but I was wrong, and I'll just show you what that is once this one's done. But I think already, I mean, this is good stuff, isn't it? You've got to say, this is impressive stuff. Not having to put any commands in whatsoever, selecting it, really, really clever. I want to show, once this one's done, I want to dive over and show you something to do with masking with this, why it's important when you do this, if you are going to be doing some masking on your image. So let me just dive back over to my desktop. Let's just wait time. It's kind of getting there. It's getting there. It's moving. It's moving. See, this is the difference between doing a live event and a pre-record. I didn't want to do a pre-record. I wanted to kind of get it live so that you can just see this stuff. No smoke and mirrors. So it's all kind of being done as it is. It's nearly there. It's very, very nearly there. The other things I want to kind of go through as well after we've done all this is to do with the lens blur, which itself has had some updates, some enhancements to it. And I'm getting a lot of use out of that, the old lens blur. Not to kind of fake the depth of field, if you like, for real. It's more of a creative effect. And I was inspired to do that by 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐁𝐞. Those of you who watched the live event a couple of weeks back, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐁𝐞 showed some pictures in there that she'd used it on. Right, we're nearly there. Stuart, no need to sing a song. We don't need any of that going on. We are very, very nearly, very nearly there. Maybe I shouldn't have done so many birds, but hey. Right, come on, here we go. This better work after this wait. If it doesn't, then I'll just blame myself. Here we go. Dum-dum. All right, well, there you go, look. That's not bad. That is not bad at all. Now, there might be a few in there where it's not worked so well, but like I showed you earlier on with that picture of Paddy, you can click then on each individual pin, try the variations to see what works best, like on this one just here. That looks a little bit odd, but I'll click on it and I'll go through the variations and we can fix it. That is so cool. Really, really, really good stuff. So I know it took a bit of time, but that just goes to show you that difference there. If you are a Lightroom desktop user, and you want to do more than one, you're going to have to do them for the time being, do them individually, as opposed to like a Lightroom Classic user where you can do more and more and more all at the same time. The only trade-off is obviously, as you saw there, the more you do, the more generations are being created and the longer it'll take. Right, so let's just dive back over this. So just one other little thing I think I want to show you, and this one's going to be in desktop version. Right, let's just dive over to the desktop version. And let's just go to here. Oh, that's not letting me go back to the image just there. Let's just see if I can get that to go to the grid view. There we go. Right, so here's an image that I took with my drone at a place called Portland Bill. And again, we're going to use that generative AI. That's what we're focused on at the moment. I'm not going to use the object-aware for now, but let's just say I wanted to remove some of this stuff down here in the water. Okay, so as usual, you've just seen it now. We just apply it and it'll do it. And there's going to be no issues with that whatsoever. It'll create 3 generations. They'll all look pretty damn good. Give it a second or two and there we go. Happy days. Right, so this one here, let's say if I want to remove this structure just here, what I could do is I could use the object aware. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of brush around the outside like so. Let's see if the Adobe's AI can recognize it. And it does a pretty good job saying, right, yeah, I can see it. That's what you want to remove. And then I'm going to click apply. So let's just see how it removes it. Like so. Let's have a look. Good. Stuart, I've just seen your question there. It's a good one. We'll come to that in a moment. Now, right, this is what I wanted you to see. Can you see it's removed it, but there's almost like this ghosting effect going on just here. Now, the reason for that is that before I'd done any of this removal, I'd used a mask on the sky. So now that kind of background has changed, the mask isn't really working. There's a bit missing out of the area that it originally worked on. So what you would need to do is, in Lightroom Desktop, you'd come over to your masking and you'd see this little warning here saying, look, your adjustments have affected the Sky 1 mask. It's changed. So you need to click to update it. So you can click to update, give it a second or two, and bang. It's all fixed now, all sorted. If you're a Lightroom Classic user, then you would get like a little dot that you'd notice appear within the masking section. And that's like a little warning to you to say there's an issue. Then you would do it. Now, that goes to show that although it's advised that you would do your removing before you do your masking, you can get around it by doing this, by clicking on this update. But on that note there, let's have a look at some of the best practice. I'm going to run through some of these points that Adobe gave to us when we were having these meetings, just to give you some ideas for best practice. But the more you use this, the more you'll discover ways that you can see to get it working better or not. And again, that's the kind of feedback that Adobe need. So let me just have a look here then. So we're going to go for generative AI best practice. These are just simple ones that they kind of listed off for us. Use it prior to cropping. Definitely use it prior to cropping. Like I just said there, use it prior to using the mask or lens blur to prevent ghosting effects. Select the entire object that you're using, and you can be quite loose with it like I've shown there. You don't have to be worried about being too accurate with it, but also make sure that you do also cover any cast shadows that are being created. Be generous with your selection. You don't have to worry about it. It's not like using the pen tool in Photoshop. You can be really loose, just brush over it. It'll do a good job. And again, because we've got that refine section, if you go too crazy with it, you can always take bits off it or add bits in. And then the last one, use object aware to preserve the background details. That's kind of basically use the object aware there when you might have something that's quite big that you want to remove. Rather than painting it all in, just go around the outside. You know, you tick the object aware, go around the outside, and it seems to be doing a pretty good job at recognizing what it is that you're wanting to select, and it'll kind of cover that for you as well. So that's the generative AI remove. Again, I've seen lots of stuff coming through on the chat there. I'll do my very best to go through those. Actually, one thing, I don't think I mentioned this so far. Before we cover the lens blur, let me just quickly show you this. I don't think I covered this, but I have also written quite a lengthy blog post. So if you're finding you can't sleep at night, dive over to my website and take a look at this. I'll put a link to this in the description part. It's the first blog post that you'll come to on my website, but I've actually gone through all this kind of stuff here in detail, and also included any relevant links that Adobe are saying. Certain things here, like if you're a Sony shooter who can now tether into Lightroom, here's a list of the current cameras that are supported. Talks about the tone curve, the lens blur, and again I give examples of all the different things here. But also at the bottom I've included the link that takes you through to the main news flash article that Adobe created for this release. But right, the last thing then I want to kind of go through with you is, let's have a look here, press my little button that I've got, is the lens blur. Lens blur enhancements. And I love this. I really do love this. It's kind of had a bit of a mixed reaction, I think, from folks all over the place as to whether or not you should be using it. It's a creative tool. It's just like my attitude towards using this lens blur, certainly now, the way we can use it, it's much more flexible. You know, we apply color effects to our images, don't we, to give them a certain mood and atmosphere. We can do the same with blur. We're not necessarily using it because our lens wasn't capable of giving us a nice depth of field. We can use blur creatively now to create all kinds of effects. Who remembers years ago when there used to be a craze that people were doing in Photoshop? Andrew, you might remember this because I knew you way back then. It was when people were taking pictures, let's say aerial pictures looking down onto, busy streets and stuff like that, city scenes, and they'd create two different lines of blur and leave a certain element of it in focus. And it gave the effect of it being almost like a miniature city, little miniature figures walking around. All that kind of stuff. It's a bit of fun, but there are obviously serious ways that we can use it as well. But let me just dive over to what should we use? We'll use the desktop version, I think. So I'll go to Lightroom Desktop. And I'll just use it on this particular image here. So a friend of mine called Steve Gomer took his picture up in South Wales. Depth of field, might want to improve it, but I might want to give it a bit of an effect. I'm just kind of playing around with it. Yeah, I think Lee Churchill, I think you're right there. Lineal blur, I think you're right. So let's have a look here then. So I'll go into the edit section. Here we've got the lens blur. And I'm just going to click on apply. Now, the enhancements here within the lens blur, if you've been using it before, you'll notice as well it's come out of early access. So this is the finished product. The enhancements are that it now is way better, much more improved at making the selections around objects and subjects. So this is pretty damn good. And also, Brian Reed, I think you said there, and Stuart Wood, tilt shift. Yeah, that kind of effect, exactly it. So you can see here it's done a pretty good effect. We've got over on the right-hand side now with the controls, we've got the blur amount. We can have less or we can have more. There's also different bokeh or bokeh, however you want to say it, that we've got different effects we've got. We can do a bokeh or bokeh boost. We've got the focal range where we can adjust it near or we can adjust it far. So you can see there, that's pretty cool. I like that. We can also adjust the depth of the blur as well, how far it goes in, the reach of it. Let's just bring it back over to here. And this is all based initially on the target area here, this little subject icon. Again, I appreciate I can't zoom in on this one. We've also got the visualize depth, where we can see here, these brighter areas here are what's in focus. The more purple and darker areas are what's going out of focus. But also when we're doing this, where we've got this focal range slider here, if you on Mac, if you hold down the Option key, and if you're on Windows, hold down the Alt key, when you click on this, you'll then get this change here. And the white areas are what's going to be in focus. So you can see as you move it across, you can change the focus. So the white areas are what is totally in focus. But what I love is the fact you've got these two little buttons at the bottom here, focus and blur. So we can refine what we've actually got. Let's just turn this visualize depth off and you'll see here, yes, the background's blurred around Steve, great selection around Steve, but this foreground here is all in focus. But I can just get the blur brush here, change the size of it, the feather, the flow. I can even use auto mask if I'm going around certain areas. But let's just say I want to be a little bit creative and I'll just brush over this front area just here. So now we're kind of going for that effect that I talked about earlier on, where we get the blur in focus and then the blur. If I now go back to that visualize depth, you can see here what it's done. So these areas here, let's hold down that Option key on Mac again, click on the focal range. You can see now, look, this is what's in focus and the purple and dark area is what's going out of focus. So it's definitely something for you to have a bit of a play with, have a bit of fun with it. I think there's a lot of mileage in that for being creative with your imagery. I really do. Just like it is with, you know, the LUTs and adjustment layers and presets and profiles. All that combined, you know, we've got our hands on some pretty hefty bit of kit here to be really creative and create a look that's unique to us. But, you know, I take my hat off to Adobe for this release. I really do. It's wonderful. It's very exciting to see how things are going. But let's see if I can somehow scroll through all of this. If there are any really challenging questions that I can't answer, because let's face it, there's only so much I know. Adobe do hold quite a bit back as well, such is their right. But on Sunday, this coming Sunday, I am doing another live broadcast, Sunday 26th, 7 p.m, and it's with Katrine Eisman, great friend of mine, Katrine Eisman, who's a product manager for Lightroom at Adobe. So we're going to be going through her photography, her projects, which are just stunning, but she also wants to talk about Lightroom. So if there's something that we can't answer today or something that comes up in the meantime, definitely dive in on Sunday and we can pose those questions to Katrine. But let me just have a very quick look here. I can see there's some really good feedback coming through. People are definitely enjoying it, and that's exactly what I've been seeing being posted across the internet today. There's a question here from Mark W. Let's see what this says here. What happens when AI edits like this are passed over to Photoshop as smart objects? Quick answer after a try. Looks like carries through as raster, non-editable. Okay, interesting. Okay, lovely. See, again, Mark W, that is the kind of stuff that people, you know, is great for people to be doing, thinking what would happen if. So Mark there has thought, right, I've done that in Lightroom. I'm going to now send it into Photoshop as a smart object to retain all those edits. When he opens it up in Camera Raw, what does it do? It's rasterize it, so it looks like those edits aren't there on the Generative Remove AI. I presume that's what Mark's on about. Right, let's have a quick look. This has been a huge time saver. This is what 1.6 shooter said. It really is. And good question here from Stuart. A good point. He's put, how much fixing with AI can you do before it's not considered a true photo? It's a good thing, but really, Stuart, you know, we all know the whole thing of getting it as much right in camera as possible still exists. You know, I remember an old saying. I remember watching Zach Harris years ago. He did a video, one light video, and there was a bit when he was walking through this one street in Atlanta, and he was just talking. And he says he remembers ages ago when somebody said to him, "Look, you know, don't worry about it." He says, if you're the kind of person that sort of looks at a picture and goes, or they're going to take a photo and go, it doesn't matter, I'll fix it later in Photoshop. He says, stop what you're doing, put your kit down and give yourself a slap across the face because you're being lazy. Now, Stuart, I'm not saying you're being lazy. It's a genuine question. I get that. But really, if you're having to remove so much, maybe take a few steps either side to not have it in the frame. I don't know. Okay, you're going to WhatsApp me now on your bit of abuse, but hey, there you go. Cool. So I don't know. It'd take me quite a while. This chat room has been really, really busy, but I'm not going to necessarily. What I might do is I'll probably go through these. If you're okay with it, I'll have a look through the chat. If there's anything that's really stands out, I'll either add it into the blog post or I'll do extra videos on it as well. But yeah, there you go. Listen, like I said, I wanted to just dive in and do a live rather than spending a day and a half doing a pre-record. Do a live, dive in on the day that this has all happened so we can see if it's working or not and just get your kind of feedback as well. But it's an exciting time. It really, really is. So that's all I've got for you. But I'll just wrap up again by saying, don't forget, this week is a big week for Lightroom. It really, really is. Get hold of a free pass. At least get hold of a free pass. The VIP pass is now, the price unfortunately has changed. It was $99. It's now $159, I believe. But, it's $159. You've got 45 classes, 30 plus hours. There's a shed loads of stuff in there, plus extra stuff that we've all put together for the VIP package. So that's that. That's the link to try to go through. Nice and simple. bit.ly/LVS-2024. And don't forget, this coming Sunday, 26th of May, 7 p.m. UK, the wonderful Katrina Eisman. I'll be joined by her on Sunday to go through, like I said, her images and her knowledge of the Lightroom stuff across Lightroom desktop, web, mobile, and classic. But yeah, there you go. So thank you so much for joining me. It's been great to see all that activity. But I'm going to love you and leave you. I'm going to go and get some grub and wish you well. But enjoy it. Have a great week exploring with it, experimenting with it. Try to break it. Give Adobe the feedback. Let's make this even better. But exciting times. And hopefully I'll get to see some of you at an event sometime. It's been too long. Right. Take care.